When I introduce myself as a political science major, I've grown accustomed to the reaction of a slight flinch. Usually I can see it in the eyes or the folds made just around the nose. Before saving face, my conversation partner replaces whatever it is they're actually thinking with a very cordial, "Oh, how nice." Without even having said what my specialization is, people are already put off by the appearance of politics. Now, I don't blame people for their distaste in my academic interest. Admittedly, we political science majors are known for the first question we ask you when we get to meet you, a question I'd assume the vast majority of you would avoid at all costs when meeting new people. What political party do you belong to? Now, don't worry, I'm not going to ask you that question today, but what I am interested in knowing are some of the slightly deeper questions that lie just below that first one. Why is it that you're in the party you say you're in? What is it that you believe about the world and your place in it that cements your location there? Conversely, let's say you're not in one of the major parties or are unaffiliated. Why then are you pushed away from party organization? How is it that you rank and order your values and act upon them? Now, for most people, the answers to those questions are typically some combination of family background and a strong emotional cue, a polarizing moment in a person's life that cements their location in the party for the foreseeable future. But beyond those basic cues, it doesn't often get more complicated than that. Especially in America, political parties typically take advantage of their instrumental quality, which is their ability to elect candidates to office so that voters can get more of the goods and services that they want from the government to select their location. But that's not what you and I know about party politics. We know party politics for its vitriol, the epic takedowns by one side or the other, the viral change my mind debates hosted on college campuses across the country. We know politics for its increasing partisanship, the good side versus the bad side. I have figured out a name for this highly performative political metatheater: pop culture politics. Now, for younger people in the audience, pop culture politics is best summed up by a single word: edits. On TikTok or Instagram, during elections or when a viral decision is made by the federal government, the edits roll out. Aesthetic tools that blend images and videos with music and graphic design to create a compelling visual narrative about a situation and the people involved. According to researchers for the Social Media and Society journal, rather than engaging in traditional rhetoric with the goal of persuading their audience that a given politician will implement beneficial policies, a TikTok editor's goal is almost immediately aesthetic. They want their favorite politician to look good. The problem with edits as a communicator for pop culture politics is that they often sacrifice, however, everything else that's important about politics in their pursuit of creating the most engaging content. Whether any information provided is true or their presentation is honest is almost entirely inirrelevant to this new digital political communication. Instead, as the researchers found, as the researchers found, it had more to do with attractiveness, in terms of both physical attractiveness as well as presentations of a candidate as being either intimidating or funny. That's right, they blatantly often manipulate the court of public opinion to drive user engagement up. Now, let's be honest with ourselves here. We've all probably had that moment when we've been doom scrolling on the couch for 2 or 3 hours, and after one video comes another, and another, and another, and suddenly it can feel like our whole algorithm is a reminder that the bad guys are pushing forward in the struggle for the soul of America. When everything we're exposed to online feels so bleak, it feels really good to see a star player for the good guys shine in one of these edits that we can then repost as a badge of honor, a sign that we are on the right side of history. What this can often mean is that in every sense, pop culture politics often has nothing to do with politics, but the feeling of seeing your favorite candidate or team presented in a heroic light, overcoming an inflated and imaginary evil rising triumphant over culture itself. The problem, however, is when we prioritize these empty aesthetics over policy substance, our democracy can pay the price. According to researchers for the American Association for the Advancement of Science, out-party hate often outperforms in-party love as a predictor for voting behavior in America. Now, at first, this can make intuitive sense, actually. Opposing the other side is a good way to ensure an easy, less contestable election victory in the next election. But we know that partisans don't necessarily hate each other on the basis of electoral strategy. They just kind of hate each other. Researchers found that partisans often discriminate for job pay against opposite partisans, can deny qualified applicants scholarships based on their partisan affiliation, and it has been long established that our partisan biases can often cause us to seek out information only when it confirms to our beliefs. What these seemingly innocent misconceptions can often balloon up to, however, is put succinctly in the results of another study published in the American Political Science Review. The researchers found that voters are willing to trade off democratic principles for partisan ends, and voters often employ a partisan double standard when punishing candidates who violate democratic principles. Wait a minute, let's pause here for just a second because this is getting really doom and gloom. My goal is not actually to convince you that there's a secret autocrat living inside of you. But when we see partisan hatred flare up every time the president speaks, or elections roll around again, we understand something about the way we understand our politics is working is being fundamentally flawed. I believe this actually comes from the first problem of political partisanship, being that polarized politics may actually be a response to a vanishing concept of community as a primary political and social entity. 250 years ago, the outer limits of our political communities would have probably been defined by just our friends and neighbors who had similar ideas about the things we should do in our local towns or villages. Any concept of what was going on in Washington, D.C. was a story we probably weren't told until we had access to widely circulated newspapers and pamphlets. According to Cornell political theorist Jason Frank, the proliferation of print media coincided with and reinforced the Republican faith in the emancipatory potential of freely circulating knowledge, overcoming the technical challenge of distance between partisans. Now, Democratic Republicans in both Massachusetts and Virginia were reading the same pamphlets and papers, sharing correspondence, and forming a collective we that transcended the limits of state borders. Today, rapid changes in our communication technology have taken this principle to an almost atomized level. Now, individuals held back by virtually no costs of entry can become public producers of content that, if it taps into that particular platform's viral algorithm, can garner the attention of an audience of millions across state and international borders. Now, as good as this development in our communication technology does for us, it does often also create the very conditions under which pop culture politics emerges. Political theorists and social scientists alike have, for a while now, been telling a melodrama of the lost communities of old. For them, the way we fix the excess partisanship caused by pop culture politics is to simply turn the phone off and go bowling, join in-person social and political clubs to mitigate our partisan hubris. Now, this might have been an option 50 years ago, when the internet was a fledgling novelty and social media could have been the name of some tabloid. But the internet has evolved into something of an environment in itself, not merely a tool or an escape from the world. How young people conceive of the influence of their political and social acts is directly tied to this reality, that the internet is the world in the exact same way that the town square is the world, a place for them to express public and private thoughts and conversations and organize collective action. This speaks to the front end of how we reconcile pop culture politics with the prevalence of social media today. When we're posting information online, perhaps it's best to be more forward-thinking about what it is we're actually trying to do or say. When you repost a TikTok edit or an infographic, what is it that you're hoping to gain out of that? Are you hoping for your posts to be seen as a curation of public content meant to be read, something like a modern newspaper or pamphlet? If we can't necessarily trust the information we're seeing online to be wholly accurate or even true to what we personally believe, maybe you actually need to lean a little bit more into that. Perhaps you can create your own public page, research more, write more, become a source yourself that other people can then rely on. If not, if what the things you're posting or reposting are just an internal sign of approval of the things that you're seeing, then own that. Maybe it's not best to, if you have no real reason, rather, to want your views to be judged by the public, perhaps it's best to leave that aside. Consequently, understanding partisanship in this new age of pop culture politics, it comes from understanding the changing nature of community and this new role that our social technology has in this modern age. Political scientists need to abandon the melodrama of logging off and more closely examine, rather, how the digital world is connected to the physical world. This undertaking is more than just an exploration of the social sciences, however. The problem of understanding partisanship today stems from the challenge of political science evidence and political theory, which have historically talked past and through each other. Alexis de Tocqueville, a French social scientist and political philosopher who visited America in the 1840s, not only embodies the need of these two worlds to speak directly to one another, but providing us, rather, a changing nature of communities that allows us now to change it once more ourselves. In the final lines of the second volume of his most powerful and famous work, Democracy in America, he wrote that around every man a fatal circle is traced, beyond which he cannot pass. But within the wide verge of that circle, he is powerful and free. As it is within man, so with communities. With this agenda in mind, I call on experts now in both fields to better equip themselves to traverse the vast expanses of this fatal circle that surrounds us. That the questions we ask better inform a new understanding of a different kind of politics, one that transcends the bitter, petty aesthetics of politics as being nothing more than a matter of popular culture, but an inquiry into how the limitations, into how our instrumental needs are a reflection of the limitations of our mortal souls. Thank you.